Womp, womp, womp. Womp, womp. Womp, womp, womp. For those of you that have stuck around and have returned, we have this number 6 player team in the NFTGL Triple X Power Rankings, and that team is Coach Steve and the New Orleans Saints. And as the original Saints coach, I feel that I am the right person to make this video because I'm the only person that's going to make this video, and it has nothing to do with me having originally been the Saints. So anyway, the New Orleans Saints and Coach Steve. So Steve, when he took over the team, had 2 handicap trades to make. He upgraded Wayne Martin and Mario Bates to Henry Thomas and Eric Metcalf. The Metcalf trade was an interesting one, as we had never seen it before. We also had never seen Wayne Martin for Henry Thomas, but generally that was because Detroit was always being used. And Eric Metcalf was always somewhere else because he starts in Atlanta. But Eric Metcalf got traded away for RB Bills, so he became available for New Orleans to take him in the handicap upgrades. So Mario Bates got moved away for Eric Metcalf, and that was that. The end of season 1, he traded Vince Buck for Orlando Thomas as an auto trade because he didn't get any trades, and a big part of that is that the New Orleans Saints really just they're just not a good trading team. They either have a player that you really don't want to get rid of because there's the things that are ranked above them are not necessarily better than them for what the New Orleans Saints are built to do. And we'll get into that in a minute. He then cut Derek Brown, Richard Harvey, and Tim Rosenbich for Lorenzo White, Glenell Sanders, who I view as one of the best peeling linebackers in the game, and B. Richardson, which I think was a hate draft. I don't think he's ever been on the field because Jim Everett doesn't really get hurt and is awesome. But I think B. Richardson was a hate draft because I know I wanted them. But that was that. So at the end of season 2, the Saints and Steve elected to auto trade Eric Allen to guarantee getting Deion Sanders. Steve is the second coach with the Saints. Steve with the Saints is the second instance of somebody in the NFTGL having Deion Sanders. The only other instance was Steve in his rookie debut with the St. Louis Rams, which is also when Steve last won a Man Bowl. He then cut Quinn Early and Sean Lumpkin to sign Tim Brown and George Teague. The addition of Tim Brown at the cost of Quinn Early gives him a situation where he has 2 elite number 1 wide receivers and doesn't really have a great wide receiver 2, so he's basically playing an elite wide receiver 1 at wide receiver 2, which is fine for some teams and can be effective, but is not necessarily ideal. But you can't argue with 2 number 2s, especially for a team like the Saints that are built to do what the Saints do, and again, we'll get to that in a moment. Season 3, the most recent season, he auto-traded Eric Metcalf for Reggie Cobb. So it's a significant shift away from using Metcalf as a slot fullback for passing plays, and more to try and maximize the effectiveness of his run game by putting Lorenzo Neal and Reggie Cobb together to create one of the hardest-hitting backfields that the NFTGL has ever seen. He then dropped B. Richardson and picked up Jeff Blake out of free agency. Again, I assume a hate draft because Jeff Blake probably will never see the field. But as backups go, Jeff Blake is pretty phenomenal. So that's where we're at with that. Let's take a look at the team. All right, Steve throttled me to open up the first season of the iteration, and then went on to the Man Bowl where we played each other, and I beat him. It was an interesting story, but people would have probably preferred to see Steve win. I was happy to win, but I would have been happy to see Steve win too. So, it is what it is. But season 2 of the iteration, Steve disappeared. maybe he hadn't practiced, or he was just having an off weekend. But he just played really poorly the whole season, missed the playoffs. But it allowed him to auto trade for Deion Sanders. So maybe he did it for Deion on purpose. I don't know, but we can guess, we can speculate. I don't think Steve has it in him, but I feel like Steve could have it in him, but I don't think he has it in him to tank. But anyway, season 3, he comes back. He's got Tim Brown. He's got Deion Sanders, and he's going to the playoffs again. And he does. He goes to the playoffs, but he was one and done. He couldn't get past the first round, and that was all she wrote. So this is his last season with the New Orleans Saints. So maybe Reggie Cobb's the ticket, but let's take a look real quick, and we'll talk about what they do. The New Orleans Saints are their biggest strengths are they have one of the best quarterback wide receiver one combinations in the game. Jim Everett, Michael Haynes is just absolute magic. Jim Everett's passing accuracy of 63 and Michael Haynes' receptions of 63 creates one of the best combinations of those two stats, which equals a good amount of coverage catches, lots of jumping catches, and Haynes has the speed a lot of times to just blow past people. It's just magic. Putting Tim Brown as a rotational guy with Michael Haynes, in this case, Steve favors Brown over Haynes, creates kind of a different vibe because you can play conditions and what you want to do, but it makes that wide receiver one slot better. And I said we would talk about it. That's what the Saints are built to do. I'll even go in and look and show you their playbooks. This is their key playbook. This is the bread and butter of the New Orleans Saints. And what you're looking at is the left pass, the right pass, and the left run, aka the broken run, T-power off center, I believe. Yes, T-power off center. So that run, phenomenal, best running play in the game. And now he has the ability to use Cobb and Neal, giving him a massive fullback that can just blow up anybody that tries to come through the center to break them up, but also gives him huge blocking on all of the other plays, as well as huge hitting power on all of his fullback runs. Cobb, however, has some speed issues, so that's something Steve's going to have to figure out, because he's only got 19 rushing power. While he has higher max speed than Neal by a bump, 38 to 44, the rushing power will factor in at times and make Cobb just feel like molasses. But anyway, these three plays that I'm highlighting are the quintessential operation point of the New Orleans Saints, because they can just call these plays, any one of these three, at any time, and every one of them can be a home run. All right, so left and right pass both send wide receiver one deep, and doing that at any moment could just be a deep touchdown catch for this team. And if you're not sitting on the broken run, calling it or playing a defensive style that can hamper it, anytime the broken run gets called, it can turn into a 50, 60-yard gain pretty simply. Then they also have two play-action plays, which can be very functional for short game purposes. As far as running the quarterback, which Jim Everett's generally not very good at, but their other four plays definitely help them in a short game perspective, 5 plays really, which helps them to mitigate if they get to the red zone and they don't have the huge play potential from passing it deep. Then they have all of these other plays to try and work it short. Playbook 1 has 3 plays that send wide receiver 1 deep, but 2 of them are play action, and you're pretty limited generally. The Saints have the fewest targets per pass in the game, and really a lot of their plays are basically just call that play and chuck it deep, because if your opponent's playing dime, and against the Saints you generally see heavy pass defense, your opponent's going to be playing either dime or nickel or normal and focusing on passing. And that's going to make it so that a lot of your underneath passes and short route guys just end up getting covered. And your only real target is to just chuck it deep into coverage and hope that the numbers work out in your favor. Fortunately for the Saints, that usually happens. Can Steve do it? We've ranked him at top 6, so we think he's playoff bound again. Will he get further than that? I'd love to see it. I think that would be awesome. You never know. Steve's got this natural talent at the things that he does, and when he puts effort into it, it pays dividends. Even a little bit of practice goes a long way for Steve. Steve is at his profession now ranked one of or the top guy in the nation. He just won a big contest operating heavy machinery like no one can do. He's tremendous, powerful, wonderful. However, you want to call it, Steve is the man, and I'm pretty sure all of you would love to have sex with him.